And Kathleen, when you think about what it means to you to be a business leader who happens to lead an HR function, versus an HR leader who understands business, what's important in that distinction to you?
Tom, I'll tell you a little story because I've always been, in my mind, business leader first, HR
Right.
second. But it's hard to convince business leaders that when you sit in this chair. And so when I was at SunGard, now FIS, after 2 years of being there, the chief operating officer, who was crusty, didn't have a lot of time for HR legal, it was all software. It was the next 2.0, 3.0, get it out the door and sell it. At a business meeting, he stood up and pointed to both myself and to the general counsel and said, see those two? They're business leaders first, HR and legal second. And so you better listen to them because it could cost you your job because they know what they're talking about. They understand our business. Now, it was a backhanded compliment, but if you understood the time in the organization, you would understand why that's so important to me. So for me, it's kind of like what Dustin was just talking about. It's having that business mindset first. You got to not only understand the business, but know what drives the business and then apply your HR toolkit to it. A lot of people go into HR, and there's been studies to prove this, not for running a P&L, not for creating shareholder value, not for running, a return on investment that beats all odds. No, we go into HR because we care about people. We want to make a difference. We want to make people happy or satisfied or realize their full potential. But that has to be balanced very carefully. So I think the second point of being, aside from having that business mindset, is really speaking the same language as the CEO. If you go in, and Dustin just kind of talked about this with data and with the board, you've got to speak the same language. So they don't want to hear necessarily, here's our engagement scores, everything's nice, everything's happy. They do, but they want it tied to specific business outcomes. So that's why, as an HR leader, I always like to work right for left. What are we trying to accomplish as a business? And how do we hold ourselves accountable to that? So I think that's really important. And you have to speak the CEO language, which is profit and loss, shareholder value, earnings per share, how your bonus plan works, how your equity works, what is being said in the earnings call. That's how he or she keeps score. And you have to do the same thing, not just all the nice HR scorecards that we put together. But you also have to strike the right balance. So yes, you have to be a business person, but as we talked about, we hold this unique role in any organization where we also are the hearts and minds of the organization. So employee advocacy is important, but it's also hard. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So I'll leave that for right now. But I also think, to kind of end this conversation, is using data and analytics. Dustin talked a lot about it, that the board has a huge appetite, so do leaders. And so again, if you can't prove what you're doing by firm data and analytics and show the movement, no matter what initiative you're talking about, without that data, you're not speaking the same language as your business executives.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and so it's coming in with the data, not the anecdotes, or maybe coming in with the data and the anecdotes, right?
That's right.
That kind of support each other, right?
That's right. Lead with the data. What's the business problem? What are we trying to solve?
Yep.
Here's how it's going to take, and here's the data that we need, or here's what we've used. Here's the data to support that our initiatives were successful or not. If something isn't working, you got to pivot very quickly. I mean, we talked about sprints, and this is where you might have a great strategy, but if it's not working in HR, you got to pivot very quickly. We don't have time anymore to say, we said we were going to do this for a year. Okay, the world is kind of blown up around us. The geopolitical situation is really different. It's time to pivot. So I think that too is the speed at which we have to make decisions also makes us more in line with the business than ever before.